Hello, everyone. Yay!
Yay!
First WoUHE panel and broadcast. I'm super excited to be here with these beautiful ladies, and I'm also super grateful for this opportunity. My name's Madeline, and I'm basically the player support coordinator at UH, and then I'm also the initiative coordinator for WoUHE, which is our Women of UHE. And today we are joined by Melissa, Kat, and Samantha. So I think I'd like just like a short introduction, maybe. If we want to start with Melissa and then go to Kat and Samantha and just kind of like give us a little bio. Who are you? I know a lot of people know, but like for those that don't know, and then like they're all working out Riot, so that's kind of an easy one. But take the floor.
Cool. So I'm Melissa. I'm from Oahu. I didn't go to UH, but my siblings have or are currently there. So that's my connection. Let's see, I work in esports. I work on LCS broadcasts. I also work on the global events. So Valorant lock-ins happening soon. I touched a little bit of that. But I work in the graphics realm and the photography as a producer. I guess that's kind of the TLDR. I want to toss it to Kat.
Aloha, I'm Kat. I'm also from Oahu. Um, I too did not go to UH, but I do have a little bit of a backstory of how I got into gaming, and we'll talk about that in a bit. The cat that was in here, it is we do get to work from home. So the cat that was here, his name is Mauna Gea. So yeah, it's one of a few that I have. So he might be popping in a little bit. I'm the program manager for localization QA. So I do a lot of the translations, and my team tests all the content that you see in over 20 different languages around the world. That's what my team does. And we also do translations and those kind of things. But I do have a gaming background prior to getting into localization. And I'll pass it over to Sam.
Aloha! Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us for the stream this afternoon with these wonderful ladies talking about esports, talking about video games. So my name is Samantha, or Sam. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And I am an associate university recruiter at Riot. So I recruit students and help run the summer internship program that Riot hosts every summer at Riot. My dad grew up in Oahu, and so in particular. And so I grew up going back and forth to the islands much when I was younger. Took a little bit of time for me to finally get back in as an adult, but I'm happy to say that I was back with family in Oahu and Maui just in November, and I'm planning to go back to Kauai in April. So looking.
Yay! Awesome. I actually was just in Kauai about 2 weekends ago, and that's my first time visiting because I came to Oahu for the first time for university, and that's my first time in any of the Hawaii Islands. And then I went to Kauai only like 2 weekends ago, but it's absolutely beautiful. Like the most gorgeous place I've ever seen in my life. Super luscious and green, and I was like, I want to live here forever, but I know it's not possible. But it was genuinely amazing. So I'm glad you're also going there soon. So today we're gonna kind of go through a varying like degree of topics. Most of them are connected to esports, and then because this is like a WoUHE panel, I do want to touch on like the subject of being a woman in esports, how that can kind of impact us. What are the kind of things that we've gone through, or different things like that have affected us? Because I know I personally, even though I've just joined the esports scene recently, it's my experience with gaming as a woman is completely different from a man. And I think a lot of people can relate to that, and it's an important thing to talk about. Um, so I do have like a few major questions that we'll kind of start with, and then we can go off of there and have like conversations about the different things. Um, but my first one would be, how would you guys introduce yourself to the general public, assuming they don't know of esports? Like someone just wandered into this Twitch chat and we're like, what's happening here? And they don't know anything about gaming or anything like that. How would you describe what you do?
I guess I'll start since I'm the esports representative here. I always kind of end up just saying I am in the professional video game space. Think of ESPN, but instead of for football, basketball, it's for professional like games. And when people ask what kind of games, I'll usually throw out not everyone, surprisingly, not everyone knows League of Legends. So I'll just say something like, have you heard of the game Call of Duty? Like there's professional Call of Duty. And then people will be like, ah, got it.
I think for me, so I dabbled in trying to go into esports, but it was a lot of work. I mean, it is a dedication. It is a job, and it's really hard at the time in Hawaii. For me, that it wasn't a thing. I mean, there was no. I think during that time it was Counter Strike. So yeah, that kind of dates me a little bit. So it was really hard, and there was not that. I mean, we played locally. So I was part of EA Hawaii. So um, at that time when EA bought out Tetris. So I was part of during that time, and at lunchtime we would play. Um, but yeah, and it was a very dominated male. It was really hard. But looking at it now with being able to see the amount of women, girls. I would call them women, even though they're girls, but women. And it excites me because it's about time. I know it's such a Lizzo thing, but it's about damn time. You know what I mean? That we get the recognition, and that we're just as good as the guys, and we deserve that chance to go ahead and kind of show like what we can do.
Yeah. I also kind of like when I describe esports to people, similar to both of your answers, I kind of just go, "Oh, it's just video games and they're just live and stuff like that." And because a lot of people don't really know about esports, which is crazy to me about like how popular esports is and how much we kind of deal with it in our lives. But then I'm like, "Oh, people can go without actually, like, seeing this at all," which I think is normal, but that's been really fascinating for me because then people ask me, "Oh, like, what's your job?" And I'm just like, "I don't if I throw out the word esports, will that make sense to you?" But that is okay, it's just how it is, and the amount of women nowadays is amazing because I grew up, like, surrounded mainly by boys playing video games. We'd be playing Minecraft, but it really wasn't a space where I was like, "This is a girl thing," or "There are other girls like that want to do this as well with me." And I had a brother, and that was probably the only reason I got into gaming. So that was also an interesting aspect because nowadays I feel like everyone I know is into gaming, and every girl has a game and something like that.
Plus one. It's something where I think folks sometimes have an idea of what a gamer looks like, and maybe that's along the lines of gender, maybe that's along the lines of certain genre of game or certain way that they play, whether it's on a PC, a console, on their phone. When I talk with students, a lot of the time, sometimes they have concerns about, oh, I'm not X, Y, or Z. I'm not a gamer. And so I don't think that I can work for a video game, work in esports. And I think that it's super awesome and wonderful that you got this panel of folks to come together and for us to be on camera to share our stories, because that's the more important part of it, is that I think it's up to us to tell about the opportunities that we have seen that exist. That way people know that they are available for them, and that folks of all kinds of backgrounds, whether it's along gender, geography, language, what have you, that there's a place for their stories to be told and a place for.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I feel grateful for the opportunity to create WoUHE and to create a program that supports women, but also the amount of support I've received to do this, it has like bewildered me. Because I think this thing of like being a woman in this space that is heavily male dominated just binds us together, and we share this similar experience of what we've been going through because of that suddenly like everyone's like, "Oh, that's amazing, I want to help you do this," or "I want to support you doing this," or "Of course you can do this." And I'm like, I've never felt like so much positive feedback for something, and it's been amazing because creating this has made me feel like validated in how I felt growing up and like how I feel in the gaming world today. When even like nowadays, a lot of my friends that are gamers are mostly men, and I love all of them. They're all my guys. I love them. But it's just different. And so I'm kind of like, I don't know. I've just felt so excited, and I'm so grateful for you guys being here today and for this opportunity because to be able to share that with people and to be able to talk about this and have these conversations and for it to be wanted just feels so good on the inside, especially as like a girl just in university, but just in general, being able to reach this kind of audience. I don't know. So yeah, I'm just like super excited. And this is also like, again, my first stream, my first thing doing anything. I feel better with Samantha's cats in the background because love cats. um, but I also wanted to bring up for Samantha because I know you talked a little about growing up in Oahu, right?
Grow up in Oahu, actually. It was my dad, and so it was
I'm
going
so
back and
sorry.
forth to visit family. Oh, no, no, none at all. If my dad had his way, we probably would have lived in the islands for 100% of our time. We just spent as much as time as we could with our family there.
Mm.
Um, but yes, Kat and Melissa would love to hear a little bit more about your stories and how you kind of
Yeah.
Yeah.
came into
Yeah.
to California to Riot.
No worries. So yeah, I was born and raised in Hawaii, on Oahu. My grandparents live on Homestead in Nanakuli. So yeah, it's rough, but you know, it is what it is. But for me, I just knew when I was young that I wanted to be in gaming, and in Hawaii, there's not that much opportunities. And at the time, I'm sure a lot has changed now, but at the time, there was only one game company, which was Tetris. And a little bit about my story is that I got invited to a UH, or not me, but um, my wife got invited to a UH lecture. And then right after, Tetris company did like a mixer after, and I was on the fence. I was like, I don't know if I want to go, you know. But she encouraged me. She's like, you know, I think you should go because she knew how much I love gaming and everything. And I just graduated. I actually went to the University of Phoenix because I was a single mom, and you know, I didn't have the time, and I stopped going to school because you know life. So, but I finally graduated, and then, anyways, back to what that was is that after the mixer, something prior to me going, somebody told me to go ahead and print out my resume. So okay, cool. Be prepared. Always be prepared, no matter what it is. If you whether you have your LinkedIn nowadays, it's kind of high tech. You can just have the LinkedIn, but yeah, just come prepared because you never know in any of these mixers there might be an opportunity. And so I went to this mixer, and there was this really cool guy, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go sit down with him. He looks pretty cool. I thought he was just an engineer. I found out later that he was actually the founder of the Tetris company. And I was just talking story with him, and I was like, hey, you know, I was telling him my story, like whenever I have to make a life-changing decision, if I want to go work at this one place or just change my life around and move away, I would play Tetris. And then towards the ending of the night, long story short, I got offered a job as a tester, working for Tetris. And at that time, I actually quit working at Pearl Harbor, so I was an IT tech. So I was like moving, you know, workstations and stuff like that. So I quit a really good paying job to go ahead and follow my dream. And then that kind of jump started my career. And what that was is that the first game that I released was Tetris on the iPod. So that does kind of date me a little bit. Yes, back in the day. But that was the first time I touched localization. So we had to translate in at least 15 different languages for EA. And we couldn't source a language for Japanese. But lucky thing, we live Hawaii. So we had to go ahead and, lucky thing, we had a couple of our engineers that could speak fluent Japanese. And also, they were like nationalists of Japan. So we're like, cool. So we had them go ahead and help us translate for that project. And that just pretty much started my passion. I mean, actually my dream job. I'm like, oh my God, Tetris, this is so cool. And then then powers that be, we all got laid off. And then I moved to LA to go and continue to pursue my job. It's hard because my family was like, "Why you're not going to get you're not going to get paid well in gaming and video games." And I just kept pursuing, and I'm happy that I did because it got me where I need to be today at Riot. I love working at Riot; it's a lot of fun. Go
Yay.
ahead, Melissa.
I feel like your story is like so much cooler because you had like that path, but I feel like a lot of people at Riot take like an unconventional route. Because I know definitely mine's pretty unconventional. Born and raised Oahu. I left at 18 to go to college. I initially went to West Point because I wanted to be an Army officer, and then uh, circumstances just panned out where I medically retired. So I never got to do that route, and I knew I wanted to teach also. That was another dream job. And so I went to USC to get a degree in teaching English as a second language because I figured, oh, I can go back home and teach, or I could go abroad. I could go to like Japan, Korea. And one of the places I went was Korea to kind of scope out possible job opportunities. And while there, I attended Worlds, which was my first ever esports event, 2014, and it was just like kind of on a whim. I was like, I literally just got into League. My older brother got me to try it after like 2 years of hounding me. And I sucked at it. Like my first game, I was Darius, and I was playing on a trackpad on a Mac, and it was embarrassing. I didn't use any of my items, didn't level up. But yeah, I went to this esport event, and a couple of riders approached me at the end of the final, and I was cosplaying as Arctic Ops Varus, and I was just like, it was hodgepodge. It was very kind of budget cosplay, I guess. And so these production riders walked up and they're like, "Hey, so we just wanted to thank you for coming out. Where are you coming from?" And I was like, "Oh, at the time I lived in Redondo Beach." And they were like, "Oh, you're basically our neighbor. You're just down the coast from us. We're in Santa Monica. Who are who are you and where who?" And so they're like, "Oh yeah, we're from Riot Games." Wait, will I put this show on? And they're like, "Yeah, we work at Riot." So of course I start fangirling. Dang, people are they noticed me. Senpai noticed me, and it was very much like uh, I didn't want to ask them who they were, like what their names were. I just wanted to be cool and just like just be in that moment. And we chatted a bit more, and by the end of the day, I was like, dang, work at Rock Games. I don't even know what I want to do there, but I want to work in games. And I I ended up applying to quite a few roles, and it took me 2 years to get my job. Uh, I started off as a contractor, as an esports graphics production assistant. So what that means is I was doing all the little grunt work, the very menial tasks that no one really enjoys, um, in order to help prep for our show days. And that kind of, led to it led to an opportunity. My manager saw that I had leadership potential, and he was like, I'm thinking about like bringing you on as an associate producer. So I got the offer to be a full-time permanent hire, and I've been here for almost 7 years now. So yeah, that's kind of my roundabout way of how I got into esports.
That's awesome. Wow. Okay, also putting mental note of Cat's the one with cats. And then
It's all good.
Samantha's wearing the cool shirt.
Yes.
And Melissa's wearing our jersey. I could
No
like
worries.
it's so on brand for me. I'm so bad with names that it's
No
not funny.
worries.
So I'm just gonna pretend that didn't happen.
It's all good. All good. You're doing great.
But because you two are both like have these really strong connections with Oahu, which is absolutely amazing to be able to have you guys here. Because obviously we're UH Manoa. Um, but I do want to know more about Samantha, where you have come from, and kind of how you got to where your position is overall, or where you grew up.
Also, shout out to the beautiful cat on cat. Sorry, that's a beautiful shot.
I am so sorry. I am so
It's
sorry. They
making
just
my
do their
day.
thing. They
Oh,
just do
that's
their thing.
so wonderful. That's so great. Best thing I've seen all day. Um, yes, a little bit about my journey. So, yes, so my dad grew up in Oahu. I myself grew up in Northern California in San Jose. So that's where I'm originally from. I moved to Southern California for both undergraduate as well as grad school. And so I was in San Diego for a long period of time before moving up to LA for grad school. And for a long time, I worked in student affairs. So I got a master's in higher ed administration. I had worked as an academic advisor, like a student org advisor. I had worked in the dean of students office at UCLA, did a variety of things. But it came to a point where I was looking for an opportunity rather than being able to focus on supporting students, getting ready for graduation, life beyond graduation. I myself am a generation college student, so I knew it was important to get a degree, but it was less clear to me about how to navigate finding full-time work, being able to apply my skills to a job that I cared about, that I found meaningful, that I could contribute meaningfully to. So kind of going along that end, wanting to then work for a company and being able to promote opportunities, things like the internship program that we have at Riot, to be able to give folks, students, opportunities to kind of explore career paths, develop their own craft, their own disciplines, which is something really wonderful. That pivot into Riot, to Melissa's point, took me a couple of years. And so I had reached out for an informational interview for the woman that was the lead of the university programs team at the time. She was really wonderful. She had a phone call with me. She gave me some very solid advice about getting some experience kind of outside of an education setting because I had only worked in schools and universities at up to that time. And so I did. I went away for a little bit. Worked at a law firm for a hot second. Actually, it was like a year and a half, right at the beginning of COVID. And then there was an opening that came for a recruiting coordinator position. So it was a contract position. I had never done recruiting before, but had a lot of skills that were transferable in terms of being able to build relationships with folks, being very organized, very good at communicating with other folks. So I had that role for about 6 months. And then there was a opening on the university programs team. I had reached out to the folks at the time who are now people that I work with, just Slack them kind of, through our company channels. It's like, oh, I would love to learn more about, the open role that you have. I would love to join your team one day. Is there things that I can to up level even now if like now's not the time, now is not the fit? And luckily it was the time, it was the fit. I was able to come into that role and I have been working on the university programs team for about a year. And so went through my first cycle of interns last summer, getting excited for this summer as well. And it's been a really, both in terms of the career, that like fulfilling activities that I wanted to find, but also in a work environment that very much makes people happy. It brings people together from across the world. I mean, Worlds was in San Francisco this past November. I was able to take both of my brothers and take my mom to kind of the events outside and kind of point to all the things and say, Mom, this is what I do. See all of this? Like, this is the community, this is the fandom, and the amount of joy that this can bring to people all over the world. Um, Especially with having to explain to people like my mom and my dad, oh, I don't necessarily work to make the games that go in the boxes because they remember me and my brothers taking our $20 to the GameStop and buying the Nintendo 64 cartridges. At times, I think my dad kind of thinks I still do that, um, but being able to show them just the scale of games and the amount of connectivity, money, opportunity that's available in games and in esports.
That's amazing. I think World is a perfect example to show someone that doesn't know anything about esports and you just say, "Look at this picture of the thousands and thousands of people that are sitting here just to watch people play this game and how emotional it was, how hyped up it was." And then I think that's the I think Worlds is really when I started to think of like, wow, there's a lot of jobs in esports. It's not just the player and like a few other people. It's like hundreds of people. And
Mhm.
kind of displayed by the three of you how different your jobs are in Riot and how like kind of diverse that is, but also how you can apply your skills to any other jobs as well. And how like I think a lot of like quote unquote normal jobs that aren't esports can get like transferred over to an esports job because most of you didn't start in esports, which I think is really interesting because a lot of guys nowadays are looking at the applications for Riot or for other companies to apply directly to, whereas all of you have gotten your job after getting more experience or just after like kind of striving to get there. Um, but I also think it's a difference in esports is just naturally bigger nowadays and has grown a lot, and gaming has grown a lot more, I would say, like globally. Because me personally, when I was a kid, there was not a lot of like the games that were really being played. Well, okay, probably should preface I grew up in the UK. So this is different to the US experience. I was in the UK for 13 years and I have an older brother. So my experience seeing games was like the Wii and like Wii Fit and then like Nintendo, which is crazy because Nintendo is a Japanese company and it just hit like globally. And then like I don't know. I remember playing Wii Sports as a kid and then Minecraft and like all of those kind of things. But that's just so there wasn't a lot of people that I felt that I knew that did that. And that might have been my experience as a woman having more girlfriends and mainly talking to girls and they didn't play games. And then like I only had a few guy friends that I would play other games with, so I coming from a perspective that's very like closed in. And this is my memory as a kid, so I'm doubting what I remember. But I think it's interesting because nowadays I'm like, there's a lot of games on the market and there's a lot of big platforms. And I remember my
Mhm.
brother playing the like big boy games and the way that those have changed. Do
Oh
you
yeah.
know the scary ones?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Played a lot of those.
I feel like I'll always remember him playing like the Slenderman game or something when that was super popular in like 2010 or 11 or something, and him, like being super scared and stuff like that. That's just what comes to my mind. But and like nowadays the horror market is like super saturated of games like that, and it's been really interesting to compare my experiences as a kid to now because I didn't even start playing FPSs until like I think when I was like 15 or 16, whereas most guys start playing when they were like I don't know, probably like 9 or 10, something somewhere around there. But I do wonder, do you guys have or like what kind of games do you guys play nowadays compared to before? I know Kat mentioned Tetris. Did you actually play Tetris or did you just
Yeah.
join the company?
No, no. So I actually played Tetris on the on the NEC and the
Mm,
Game Boy. So I that's when I knew I was like I want to be in gaming and that kind of thing. And then, of course, everybody plays Mario and Mario Bros and all that kind of Mario Kart. But to your question right now, I play like Call of Duty and I now I'm a lot older and even though like a few years back, it was I go to work 8 hours a day, come home, eat, hang out with the family for a few hours. But around like 10 o'clock to 2 a.m. in the morning, that was game time. It's like, it's Call of Duty 2, man. It's like Modern Warfare 2. I'm shooting javelins. Running, or I don't run around. I'm more of a support. Using my M240, just holding down our area. People call me campy. That's all right. But it was a lot of fun and it was like so Monday through Friday that was our jam. That's all me and a bunch of us at work, that's what we would do. And then on the weekends it was like, okay, that was family time. We couldn't play even though we wanted to play, but but then after a while like you just kind of grow up. And then I was like, oh, okay, I got to stay focused. This is extra time that I should study and kind of build up my skill sets. So like what Sam and Melissa was doing. It's like, yeah, it took me a while to get to Riot. It took me 5 years. I originally applied for a production coordinator. I got some really good feedback from that. Went away, got in, went into a couple other gaming companies, and I got kind of tired of the gaming, so I went into entertainment. So my degree is, yes, IT, but that was my backup. So if I didn't make it in gaming, I had a degree. So if anything, that would be the best advice that I would give every young up and coming game developers and everything. Is like, not all of us can be engineers. Like, I tried. I went into computer science, and I tried coding. It wasn't my passion. But what my passion was is like, I like working with people. I like talking to people. I love motivating them. And then I thought, I was like, well, somebody needs to manage those engineers and get them motivated to go ahead and do a great job. So I could do that. So it's a matter of finding what you like, what you're good at. And it takes time. It's not going to be like, oh, I get up one day and I know what I'm doing. And it's like what Sam says, you get that feedback and everything. And I love Sam. I thought you were with us for years because you are amazing. We got at least 2. So last year, if that was your first year, knocked it out of the park. We actually got 2 of the interns. They work on my team to help us. They're part of the insights team. They actually look at all of you all your players, all the players and their feedback and how we can go ahead and serve our players better. So yes, process does work. I came in as a contractor too. But I did have an opportunity. It was a lot different because Riot was hitting me up for full time. And then also this agency who works with Riot was also hitting me up for a localization. And I've been in gaming for over 15 years. But I really wanted to sharpen my localization skills. So usually what people do is they get it, if they're in localization and they're translators, they want to get out of that and get into gaming, game developers and working with the game teams, creating games. I went the total opposite because I wanted to kind of sharpen that skill set. So I think it's a matter of really identifying what you want, what you want to do, and don't get discouraged if they tell you no. Because look at the 3 of us; they told us no, and we got some skills, and we came back. You're like, you got to look at us now. We're doing some awesome things, and so they said yes to us. I know I've heard young students like, I applied like 5 times. It's okay. It's like, ask for feedback. Always ask for feedback. And sometimes you'll get it. Sometimes you don't. Riot gives, from what I understand, they gave me feedback. It hurts, but the second option is that they don't have to give it back to you. So accept it, be humble, say thank you, because you never know. 5 years from now, they might say, hey, I remember you, So those are the kind of things. You don't want to burn any bridges in the gaming industry and entertainment. I've seen a lot of people that were in entertainment, now they're in gaming, they work at Riot. I'm like, hey, I remember you. So it's a lot of making sure that you humble yourself, always learn, and know that you want to go and level up. Not, you are there for you, but also be humble and ask for that feedback. I talk a lot, but
No,
I gotta give back.
all good. I did want to clarify because from my experience, I don't actually know kind of what localization means in the context of esports.
Oh
And
yes.
so if you could give
Yeah.
I don't know, some form of
Yes.
definition just to understand that better.
Sure. So localization. So everything that Melissa and her team has in English, we need to translate that in over 20 different languages. So you have to imagine 3% of our players at Riot are in North America. 3%. So 97% of our players are worldwide. So that's why us have to have that global mindset. Like, how can we go and reach out those people out in Korea and Japan and in China, and we have Taiwanese, what is Thai? So it's all of these other locations that we also want to go ahead and hit. And they watch esports. I mean, it's huge. Like, it's I've never been to Worlds. I've heard amazing things. I will one day, hopefully this year. I keep on saying, okay, this year, but I've heard everybody say, and now we have Valorant. You know, it's like that's even great too. Um, but yeah, but people have to go and translate like those commentators. They have to translate from English to like Korean and Japanese and simplified Chinese, Taiwanese. You know, so we have to be mindful, and then also LATAM and our EU markets and all of that. So we have to be very mindful and get translators that can quickly translate stuff because it does take time for us to go and get that content translated. So it's us trying to be more of a global footprint around the world, and that it's not only Riot. All of the other gaming companies know, and they're trying to do the same thing as what we're doing here at Riot.
That's awesome. I think I can relate to that as a Japanese major because I'm always thinking, how can I take my degree somewhere? And what can I do with Japanese? And I'm like, oh, I can translate and I can do different work like that, but where? And the fact that I personally didn't know that a localization job existed in Riot,
Mhm.
in my head, I'm like, of course they translate the words into other like languages. That makes sense. But in my like, I think deep down, I didn't really truly know what that meant and what
Mhm.
work is put into doing that. Because the behind the scenes work for most of esports is like massive and super underground roots all the way to the bottom.
Yeah.
And it's super cool. And knowing that, especially here at UH, we have, I personally think it's a good Japanese program. We also have a really good Korean program and Korean flagship program. And a lot of my friends are majoring in languages or minoring in languages. So kind of
Yeah, they should
knowing how, yeah,
they
go
should come
ahead.
and apply. They should come and
Right.
apply because we actually have like our load producers is equivalent of a game producer, but they work closely with the game teams to make sure our content is localized. So they all of them have at least one like a second or third language. So we have a couple of them who actually studied abroad. So they have a degree here. So they're from Texas and I believe California, and they flew to Japan and they taught. And they're like, oh, I want to do something else besides teaching. You know, I want to do something else. And they came back, and Riot hired them, and they work with us in our localization production team. And so what that is that they go to make sure like each game has either 15 or 20 different languages, and so there is a lot of opportunity for people that do translations that can come in. Me and Sam have been talking to see what we can do and on how to get more of the universities involved that have those bilingual programs and those kind of things to kind of give those opportunities. Like there is there are jobs there are jobs that not necessarily are like creating games, but it is a lot about how we you know, you don't have to be a gamer to work at Riot. You just have to be a passion, and you have to be willing to learn, and you know, stay humble the whole time. And I keep harking that because it can get to people if they're not ready for this type of work. I don't know. What do y'all think, ladies?
No, I no, it's definitely something that um especially when I had gotten my master's in teaching English as a second language, and when I was in the process of, I think I was like a month out from getting my degree, and I was in the process of an interview with Riot, and I was in like the last stages of the interview. Um, but I got passed up because I was full-time student, and that sucked. It felt bad. But at the same time, I was like, how can I use this ESL degree to work at Riot? Like if I got passed up for this, it was a web content role. Um, but the localization side is what kind of like I was like, oh, they do have to be like globally minded, and that's basically what an ESL teacher is, right? Like you have to cater to so many different cultures and languages, and be able to make my content, the English language, you know, something that can be shared with all of them, regardless of what their backgrounds are. And at Riot, that's what we're trying to do with our products. And I think that's actually a really good idea. Like Sam and Kat, loop me in on those conversations. Like
Oh yeah,
I'm
for
down.
sure. Yeah. Because we're not only translating, we're also being culturally aware So when we're doing like certain skins or those kind of things, we'll pull in these different cultural groups that we have at Riot called rigs. I think Sam can explain a little bit more about what rigs is for us all. But what that is that we just don't want to just translate. You know, that's great and everything, but we want to, when somebody loads up our game in Japanese, they want to think like, oh my god, this is for me. They translated for me. You know, this is kind of cool. You know, even in Thai as well, it's like, wow, they created this content for me. I can relate to that, and English is a second language to them, so we want to go ahead and make sure that we are aware and being mindful and being diverse. So that's why our team is kind of on the low. Nobody really knows about localization, but we do a lot of kind of advocating for diversity and inclusion with all of our products.
Yeah, I can definitely plus one to that. To speak a little bit more and to perhaps tie into kind of how we got looped in, and this opportunity was risen to our awareness. So Rigs at Riot are Riot identity groups. And so at a lot of other companies, they might be called ERGs, so like employee resource groups. So folks from different identity communities being able to come together, whether they identify themselves with a particular community, they are allies for particular communities. We have 7 different rigs at Riot. We had met Kevin at the API end of year mixer at the Riot campus. And so Kevin flew all the way to California, to Los Angeles. We, got to, talking story at the event, being able to talk about connecting with you all for this. And we were talking before the stream started. That was a couple of months ago. And, holidays happened, took a little bit of a pause, but then Ellen was great with her team of getting back in touch with us and getting this on the calendar. So that the rigs have been a really transformative part of my experience at Riot. Kat, Melissa, I'm sure you speak as well. So I came to Riot in the middle of the pandemic, like spring of 2020, and everything was very still shut down. I didn't physically meet anybody that I worked with for probably about the first 6 or 7 months that I was at Riot. So exclusively a remote experience. So I saw my teammates day to day, but meeting other folks outside of the company was hard. Um, but the rigs, um, I think it was the Filipinos at Riot. They were the first ones that I was able to kind of connect with through different online socials, watching, movies together. I remember just laughing our butts off watching the debut on Discord and doing kind of digital kind of like parties with each other, just kind of building in mix. Um, so that there was that API mixer. I myself am also part of a women that's a part of Women at Riot, a group of women that I'm in with that is small. It's like a group of 5 or 6 women that are spread out in Riot offices across the world. So actually, the woman that leads our cohort experience, we meet like maybe every month, maybe every 6 weeks, come together kind of to connect, to talk about different topics. But she works in our Sao Paulo office from Brazil, and so I would have never met her in any other circumstance. But she has her own area of expertise, working in publishing down in Brazil. But they're a wonderful source of it's made my experience in the video game Riot very meaningful. And to the point about putting yourself out there, right, Kat? Talking to people. Kevin did that. He talked to us, said, we have an opportunity. Love to get you involved. Who's ready? We were ready. And this is how part of the reason why we're here today. So just being ready and putting out there perhaps the opportunities that you're looking for, the kinds of ways that people help for the things that
That's awesome.
Yeah, shout out to Kevin, man. He came in with
For
the lowest
real.
spirit. He was
No.
giving out snacks. Hey, you want a snack? And it was like, writers have never seen that before, and they're like, oh, that's the guy with the snacks, and it's a really good icebreaker. But yeah, he got me from the start, not because of the snacks, but I was like, oh, look, this guy is like, all right,
Oh,
on,
he's amazing. He's well loved in our program for just
Yeah.
being like, I don't know. He's been a super big help for me since I've started the program, and especially with because I have had to deal with some issues that I genuinely just need help, like support with, where I'm like, I've never dealt with this before. How do I do this? And he's always immediately like, yes, I'll give you the answers. I'll explain everything to you. And I'm always like, let's go. And then he also, because he went to Japan recently and just brought back me snacks. And I was like, why are you giving me snacks? This is so cool. Because I love snacks.
Yeah.
But I'm
Yeah.
glad, I'm so glad he was able to meet you guys, especially in person, and bring the Aloha spirit.
Yeah.
It's super cool. I think I'll try there. I do want to delve into women in gaming a little bit just to understand like how you guys see yourselves in like trying to think of how to word this well, but in the company now, how you see yourself like helping improve things for women or helping make strides to change things, or if things have changed a lot from when you first joined, even though I know like for Samantha, you've only been at Riot for a year, but even not just Riot, during your whole career, what's kind of changed for you and how have you tried to make a change as being a woman in a field sometimes completely dominated by men or different things? I'm not sure if Kat, you want to start, or I can also rephrase that because that might have
Oh no,
been
no, no, no. Yeah. I was
very poorly worded.
Melissa almost said something like part pocho. Anyway, what for me, I think I think out of all of us, I've been in the industry the longest. Again, I said 15 plus years, seen a lot of things. Um, it was very male dominant. Like I was like the only girl in the studio of like 30 people. Oh wait, I was the second. The first one was like a receptionist. Um, so that kind of gives you that demographic. I was in QA and that other person. So now it's like there's so much representation of women in executive positions. I think I've seen it start to grow in the last 5 years. But when I came to Riot, I was blown away. I was like, wow, man, there's like people, in executive like positions, like game developers, and uh, executive producers. And I've never seen that before. It's like, it was my pipe dream. I was like, yeah, I'm going to be that. And then, yeah, life happened. And I was like, I don't know, but I can help and support these other people. And I think that's what it is too, is like, um, when I was in the gaming industry, I didn't have this kind of like um a place where women could give back and kind of is like, hey, here's some pitfalls, here's some things that you should do. And you know we still have to work a little harder to be seen. In general, I don't have to work as hard as before at Riot, but um I think it's also making sure that um you stay on top of your game. Try not to be too complacent. It does get tempting to do that once you feel kind of like, oh, this is pretty good. Um, but yeah, it's exciting because I see more women coming to events and we're talking and they're excited, and that makes me excited. That makes me so excited because that means the next generation and generations to come have have better opportunities to get higher, to where they're actually owning the company themselves, or they're being the CEO of the company, and really driving empathy. And just because we're different, obviously we're a little different, and we have that empathy drive, in my opinion. Um, but yeah, I think it's come a long way. And don't stop. Even if somebody tells you no, just keep going. Just say, okay, thank you for the feedback. But keep fighting. If this is what you want to do, and whether it's gaming or not, it could be entertainment, it could be, private sector, government, whatever. Just don't let nobody tell you like, no, 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 you're not good enough. It's like, no, yes, I am. I need to just sharpen a few tools in my tool shed, but yes, I am. I am worth it. I hope that's helpful. But yeah. it's come a lot way, and I'm so happy. I'm pumped. I can't wait for all of you graduates to come out and teach me more stuff because I need to always learn. And always be willing to learn. That's I mean, yeah, just learn. I'm still learning a whole bunch. So yeah.
Huge
I think
plus
that's
one.
how I've felt that really strongly. And I think part of the reason why I created WoUHE, or where I was just like, I want a program just for women, is noticing how impactful it is to say, hey, we're like you and we're here. And then suddenly there's just a different level of motivation of I can do this too, or there are people that will support me that understand how I feel. And even just visually seeing people, like, because right now I'm in our iLab space at UHE, which is basically our like esports arena hut where we have gaming, we have public hours, and being able to see more women come in and hanging out with them and talking to them and them feeling okay talking to me or reaching out to me has made me feel so good, and then also has inspired me to reach out to other women like you guys and to reach out to other women from different companies for other like projects, and to be able to be in like that circle of supporting each other and kind of growing and just being there is like reassurance. Because I think growing up, I didn't have that at all. And I only had really guys that were friends, especially in gaming. And I just associated it with this is a guy thing. I'm a girl, but I'm like a quirky girl. So I'm allowed to be here. But it was like that mindset, which is so ridiculous because,
No, it's
like,
not at all. Not at all.
oh, it does frustrate me though, because I felt like I had to be like a tomboy, or I had to be more of a boyish girl to be able to play games and to be able to hang out with them and to fit with them. And the UK is very different to the US, and I would say it's a lot more sexist over there. And there are clear distinctions between a girl thing and a boy thing. So it was very clear when I was doing the boy thing. And I think growing up in that environment and always being kind of alone in that sense, because I was in this place and I was the only one that looked like me, and everyone else was like a guy, and I was just like the only one. And then coming here and being able to go, wow, there's a lot of women that like what I do, even though I feel like out loud it doesn't feel like it matters as much as it does, but it does matter so much to be able to see that and to feel it. And especially as I'm in a leadership position now, I've wanted like nothing more than to make sure that the women that I'm friends with or that know me or see me will also get to where I am, or will get the same opportunities, or will feel okay to speak up about things or to do like stuff like that. But that was my whole spiel. I don't know if Melissa or Samantha, you guys also have takes.
I mean, I similar to you, Madeline. I grew up. My older brother was kind of my. We both played Super Mario Brothers like growing up. That was the first game that I played. So it was like I feel like people get into games through solo play or co-op, and my first introduction was co-op playing with my brother, and then solo games like Tetris. It's fun, kind of just trying to beat your own score sometimes. Um, and I also had very similar experiences of like when I got into FPS games, playing with my dad, my brother, and then obviously when you hop on TeamSpeak or whatever they used back then, Ventrilo, um,
TeamSpeak, yeah,
like
Yeah.
your
or
voice is
Skype.
very exactly like yeah, weird Skype setups, but as soon as they hear your voice, they're like, oh, is that a girl? And it's like great. Like, yes, I'm a girl. But thankfully, I had family or I had friends who were in my squad who would vouch for me, or like if I started getting bullied in that channel, that was something I didn't have to worry about because I had the backup. Um, Me personally nowadays, like I want to play Valorant, but I don't want to solo because of the toxicity. Like I personally just avoid it. Um, and if I play online Xbox, I'll hop into a lobby with like pre-made. I don't like hopping in with strangers or anything like that just because I want to avoid any kind of comms with people that I don't know. And so it's really cool to see, especially in the esports space, competitive space, seeing game changers in Valorant, and just kind of creating that safe arena for women to be competing at those levels and being recognized for how good they are at this sport. Um, and I think we can only improve going forward because of groups like this where we're supporting each other and you know we're a little bit more visible now, right? Like I feel like it was a surprise to me even when I first got into the industry that like there were women who had 15 plus years, in the gaming industry, and it's like, dang, really, this has been a thing, and I just didn't know about it. Where are all these, like women in leadership positions, like Naz, who's global head of LoL Esports, or Anna, executive producing Valorant, and it's just like that. I feel like if there was more of that, more of like what we're doing right now, available to me when I was in high school, I would have been like, even earlier on, I want to work in games. I can do stuff like that I never would have thought possible just because I saw someone else already doing it.
Yeah, I mean, and another thing is that those are two of the greatest people on our in our company that I also look up to. I'm like, wow, if they can do it, I can do it. It's like I can lead too because I can see them, and there's also, I mean, we can deep dive into other things too, like there's different body types and that kind of thing too, and it's like some of our leaders are not the really skinny people, and then I like Shauna, she's our head of entertainment and help with Arcane, and she's my body type, and I'm like, I can relate to her. It's like, and I've told people like I like people that I I can see them. It's like, oh, it's not about an image, it's all about your talent, and that's the thing too, because I was hung up young, back in the days, like, oh, I have to be a certain weight, I have to look a certain way, I have to wear this makeup, I gotta wear a dress, I don't look good in a dress. um and it's like now it's like people look at me for what I can, what I can give back, and my talent, not so much of how I look. And I that was my personal stigma, and I hope everybody who's watching is like, focus on your talent. Of course, be clean, do your thing. Um but yeah, it is exactly what Melissa was saying. When you can see yourself in those leadership roles, it does motivate you. Like, oh, cool, that's cool. I want to do that.
I
How
will
about you,
double
Sam?
I will double tap on the actually I didn't even think about this until you brought it up. What I really enjoy about our work environment, and I will give the caveat, right, is the only video game company I have ever worked in. It's because at Riot. I had worked in a very formal work environment coming to so higher education, that law at the COVID. It very much was like I was wearing business dresses, I was wearing heels, I was wearing, there was like a very expected way that myself identified woman would dress in my place of work, and was very much expected from women of all types of whether they were, someone who was like me or someone who was a leader, a manager, a partner, a dean, whatever it was. And I actually really appreciate this move into tech, into video games. That's not something that I really think about when I go to work anymore. So I do work from home for part of the apartment, just a couple miles away from Riot. But when I do go into the office, 2, 3 times a week, I don't have to worry about as much about what I'm wearing. There are folks that are wearing jeans. There are some folks that wear like hoop skirts. There are folks that wear the awesome like Pokemon onesies.
Yeah.
Really spans the gamut. So it's a place, probably the most welcoming place that I have ever worked at. Being able to really bring full and authentic self and all the ways that you express yourself into I really appreciate. So thank you for touching on. I didn't even, um, but I mean, kind of going back to yes, seeing role models, being able to how influential that can be. That's why I was super jazzed for a particular event. Why I'm really passionate that I do, because I feel that there are a lot of folks, young folks, they're in high school, they're in college, they have dreams, they have aspirations. Maybe to them, they know kind of what the end goal is. I want to work for a game company, I want to have you, but it's just not clear to me how I get there, the kinds of roles that are open for me, for the things that I am good at, what I can bring to the table, how to get connected with those opportunities, what those opportunities even like. Because I think that sometimes folks can focus on, I need to be a programmer, I need to be a game designer, I need to be an artist, and that's it. I gotta fit like one of those boxes, otherwise there's not a place for me. And that's so not true. Um, that's probably one of the biggest platforms I try to communicate to folks, especially young folks that are looking for opportunities to work in the games industry, can speak to Riot. We have this summer probably about 100 interns that are coming into Riot, and they span all disciplines, all games, all products across all kinds of different roles, responsibilities, scopes, and it is, some software engineers, of course, some artists, some game designers, but then there are people sound design that do UX design. There are people that are illustrators and concept artists. There are people that work in production. They work in insights. They're researchers, PhD students that are doing research about why does this agent get picked more in Valorant, um, things like that. So there's a wide range of things people do within the scope of video games, and sometimes that can lead up to maybe a specific craft, something that you study in school. But sometimes other roles, it's are you organized? Are you good at developing relationships with other people? Like, can you lead a team, lead a group? Are you someone that can track a group project from beginning to finish and deliver it to the end, being able to pivot folks out, allocate tasks? Those are all things. They're project managers, they're producers, they're all these things that at least I guess myself, I didn't know that those were jobs that kind of were associated with some of those skills when I was in college. I didn't realize people got paid to be organized and to track stuff, but that totally is.
That's a really good thought. And like, I'm really glad you said that because that's also how I felt kind of learning more about the esports world and working in it is just how much there is out there and how you can apply your skills. And then also going back to the roles and like the representation of just being able to see someone that looks like you matters so much, and I'm glad we talked about that because I do think it's really important because I think a lot of people ignore that. But when you're only seeing one type of person or one color or one body size or whatever, it gives you this I have to be like that or I'm not good enough. And
Mhm.
so I'm so grateful for having more role models, for having more women, but also having more women of color, for having more women with different viewpoints and just having like different kinds of people around that can provide you with the inclusive kind of we are different people and we don't all look the same, and
Mhm.
that's okay, and it's inspiring, and we don't have to be a certain way to be our true selves or to be successful or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm really sorry, we are out of time. I wish we could talk for like 5 more hours. But like I don't think I can express how grateful I am for you guys to have given us your time to be talking to me, to have planned this with me. I'm so like grateful for it, and I couldn't be more happy with how this went and the things that were said and all of that. So just please, 1,000 times, thank you. And I hope we will be doing future events, ideally, if it works out, every month. So everyone else, please keep checking in for WoUHE stuff. These beautiful women, I'll be posting their information and all of that stuff in our Discord. So please check that out because they're really cool and they want to help you out. And just, yeah, they're amazing people. So we'll get that up. Besides that, we'll see you next time. And thank you for joining in.
Thanks for
Bye
having
bye.
us.